Okay, got it. Oh, hi everybody. Happy Tuesday. Let me lower this on YouTube. Is that better? Okay. Hi everyone. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is as good as it gets on YouTube. This is kind of high, and I don't think I like the camera grittiness. Y'all know I'm trying to figure out my camera setup to go live everywhere so that I don't have to choose. Oh, poor people on Facebook. I'm gonna try to upload this on Facebook, but Facebook has not been getting me on live the last several times. But here we are. So we are talking about 3 ways that we gaslight ourselves in relationships. Let me go ahead and pin this to the top. This is really important because sometimes our biggest op in relationships is not the other person, but ourselves. And we can really get in our head and excuse bad behavior, minimize our own needs, and not show up for what it is that we want. And so it's really important for us to see what are the signs of when we are getting in the way of what we want, when we are the ones who are sabotaging a relationship. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, Crystal. How are you? Good to see you. It's one of my members from the Members Club. Good to see you, love. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump on in. You know the deal. If you're ready for our first way that we can gaslight ourselves in relationships, go ahead and put a 1 or a heart in the chat. While you do that, I'm going to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Sheena Lachey. I'm the founder of Black Girls Heal. I help women heal from the symptoms of love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation, and the trauma that causes it to make way for healthy love in their life, healthy love with other people and with themselves. And so through people working in our programs and with our methods, there have been people who have restored their families, let go of toxic relationships, been connected to people who actually do love them, support them, trust them, left frenemy situations, and built really deep relationships with deep friends, and most importantly, improve their self-love, improve their self-esteem. One of my greatest compliments that I really love to hear is when people tell me who are in therapy. And for those of you who don't know, I am a former therapist. I was a licensed therapist for over 12 years. I had a very successful practice where I help women with these same things. And so I love when I find people who are in therapy, especially if it's a therapist that they love, but they still find the materials here helpful. And that's exactly why I created Black Girls Heal, because even though I was a therapist and even though I've been through my own recovery system, there was still gaps in information to like bring this all together. So I love when the things that we do here actually helps people move forward and accelerate their progress. So thank you for the hearts, ladies. Today we're talking about 3 ways that we may gaslight ourselves in relationships, and here's the first one. The first one is thinking that what is happening in relationships is only temporary. I'm gonna say that again. Way number 1 that you can gaslight yourself in relationships is to think that what is currently happening in the relationship is just a temporary issue. I think a lot of times the ways that or the reasons why you can think that what is happening is temporary is if the person that you're talking to can verbally express to you what is happening and that they're aware of it. You think, oh, they're aware of it, so that must mean that they are actively working on it. That means that they see it as a problem. That means that they want it to change. And so you can almost check that off your red flag list, if it's even on your list, to being something that might even be a plus for them, right? Because now it's not that they have a red flag. Now there's someone who is really self-aware, and there's someone who's really self-accountable, and they're mature, right? Not realizing that just because someone acknowledges something does not mean that they are actually moving towards it. And so we can make up all these stories around it. Thank you for the compliment. You said you love my hair. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to try out some of those heatless rollers tonight, so we'll see if it works out. I have not tried to curl my locks in a long time, so we'll see if I get the pattern that I want. So someone can tell us that what they are working on, or tell us that. So examples of that is maybe you meet someone who says, this is an example that I give often, you meet someone who says that they are not good at talking about their emotions and talking about their feelings. And one of the things that's really important to you is someone who is emotionally communicative, someone who is emotionally intelligent, someone who's emotionally expressive. So you will take the fact that they can identify that they are not good at talking about their emotions, and you'll say, oh, they just don't know. Like, look at them being so vulnerable with me. Of course. And you will erase that for what it is, what it actually is. Now, I mark this as temporary, or I said that the red flag is that you think that is temporary, because part of what happens too is you think that whatever the issue is, that y'all can overcome it with time, by getting to know each other, learning how to communicate what it is that you need. A lot of times people will take a chance when it comes to boundaries. So I just posted a TikTok that talks about really owning your boundaries and owning what it is that you want. And I think sometimes it's not that people don't know what their boundaries are, they don't really have enough emphasis or power around it to think that they deserve to command what they're asking for. They will take their boundaries as suggestions for themselves. And they will act like, no, these are standards and this is what anyone has to do to be able to be close to me and be intimate with me. But really, it is just a suggestion, because you will let people, the general you, maybe not you who are watching, but for sure the general you will maybe express what it is that you want, but depending on what the person is giving you on the other side, you may compromise and say, well, I'm going to be patient. And I told them what it is that I want. So now they know, and let's see if they give it to me. And I am just not a proponent in wasting time. I feel like we have one life here on this earth. And when someone shows you who they are and what they're available for, is really important to believe them. Okay, so let me know if that's making sense. Are there any thoughts or questions about what I have shared so far? Okay, is this making sense? Are you relating to this? Have you done this before? Have you ever been in relationships with someone who is telling you something that's going on and you're like, it'll be okay, or I'll keep an eye on it, or they are in process? I think what I see, and I'm laughing just because I'm not even really laughing, I'm just, the frequency of it is something that is kind of jarring, so what I will really see is a lot of people who will meet someone who has a lot of these rough edges, and they will think that they kind of won the jackpot, because a lot of times the ways that unavailable people show up is not a wolf. It's not the big bad wolf that comes and is about to blow your house down. They're not always the debonair fuckboys, charming, that you can tell, and you can feel that energy, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be trouble. Sometimes what happens is that the people are the nice people, which I've heard me talk about before, and not the nice guys and that they are very visibly misogynist, but they call themselves the nice guys. No, they actually look like, and they show up as nice people. And these nice people get into a partnership or relationship or a friendship with you, and they look like they have all this drive or all this ambition or all this desire for things to be different, and they might even tell you that. So you think, oh wow, I've met someone who has all this desire to have this great life. We got the same values. They are talking about taking care of themselves and talking about their dreams, but you don't pay enough attention to seeing, do they follow through with that? A lot of people who may take you down or not be the best for you and be unavailable are all talk. They're all talk. They do not know how to be self-accountable and take care of themselves and to push themselves. They do not know how to be emotionally safe places for themselves. They do not know how to push past adversity. They do not know how to look for and ask for help. And so these type of people typically connect to people who are the fixers and the savers. Y'all are usually magnets for each other, and you don't realize that you're in it too deep with them until you're actually connected to them, until you have this emotional buy-in and dependency, right? You have put a lot of emotion, time, love into this person, into this relationship. You have formed this sense of belief around them and what they're capable of. They may have told you that they depend on you as well, and that you have been a safe space for them. And so when the game starts to get more in full view and you start to actually see what's going on, it is going to be that much harder for you to pull back, because now you feel like, I'm abandoning them, or I'm doing the wrong thing, or I'm being selfish. And so you're trying to negotiate with their lack of availability when really from the beginning you saw what was there. Or maybe if you didn't see it, it came to pass. And so what I really try to teach my students to do in my coaching program, my people who are dating, is I talk to them about having a dating plan and really slowing things down. And I know that it's kind of all the rage right now, or at least maybe, there's different pockets of the internet. And one of the pockets of the internet that I'm in that I've talked to you all about that I really, I find some value in. I'm not as much in it as I was before when I was like healing from some things over the last several years. But in the feminine energy community, there is a big push about getting that ring within a few months. And I love that. I believe that that's true. I believe that there are healthy men, for those of you who are straight, I believe that there are healthy men who, when they know what they want, they absolutely know what they want. And they're not going to waste time or years securing it. And I think those of us who are love addicts, it is really hard for us to assess without time, without allowing our nervous system to calm down, to get out of that excitement of being connected to someone and being chosen. And oh, thank God, I don't have to worry about dating anymore. I don't need to worry about relationships. You can connect to someone or a situation that's not good for you. But because you've already attached to the promise of what this relationship can give, again, you're stuck, right? So I really try to teach my students to slow down the process. For my avoidance, I might have to teach them to, let's open this up, let's actually get you more connected to a person. And for my love addicts, it's like, girl, let's take it down a notch, right? And truth be told, especially when I was in therapy, when I was working as a therapist and I was working with love addicts, and I even I don't see it as much with my coaching students because usually they come in because they are starting to date, or they want to date, or they want to date in a healthy way and not get caught up in these patterns. But sometimes what will happen is when women who are recovering or healing from love addiction and trauma and stuff like that, they will meet someone who looks like everything that they wanted. And so they immediately start to feel all the endorphins and all of like the highlights and the romance from being in that partnership. And they think that it's cured. Like, not only have I met someone who's great for me, and I'm feeling happier and I'm feeling in charge of myself. And so, when I was a therapist and they would start not coming to therapy as much, or when they did come to therapy, everything was great. Everything's great. Like, he's really showing up, or she's really showing up, because I saw love addicts of all sexual orientations. And that kind of thing. And so then they would like kind of flake off, and then come to find out when things started to get rough, then they would need to come back to therapy, or they would want to have therapy more often. Or actually what would happen is this person that was so perfect and they would only tell me all of the good things, now it will slowly start to slip, like, well, we did have this argument last week, and even then they will like kind of minimize. I can tell, like, I've been doing this for over a decade, y'all. Like, I could tell that they were only giving me certain parts of the story, or at least trying to talk about it in a way that did not make their partner seem like a bad person, because they know what we're there for, and they think that they know what I'm going to say, and they're afraid of being judged, and they're afraid of being forced to break up, which I would never push my clients to do anything they didn't want to do in the first place. But they will mistake being in a relationship as the solution and really rush into connection instead of learning how to take their time. A way of healing, a way to know that you have worked through a lot of things, is you're exiting this lack mindset that I have to get someone now, and I got to get them soon, and I got to get them tomorrow. Otherwise, I've missed my chance. When there are people, if monogamy and connection and marriage is what you're looking for, there are people who get married every single day, of every single age, of every single background. People who've been married 0 times and people who have married 4 times. People who are 22 years old and people who are 62 years old. People who are size 00 and people who are size 18, 20 or bigger. How you feel about yourself is going to dictate what you take in. So going back to the main point that I shared for the first way that we gaslight ourselves into relationships and unhealthy relationships, which is thinking that whatever is happening is temporary, If you have a mentality that's like more open to settling on your standards and what you want, you're going to take someone who is showing you from day one that they cannot show up for you in the way that you want them to, and you're going to try to work with it. And you're going to mistake the real truth in humans and relationships that yes, everyone's not perfect, and yes, relationship requires compromise, but not at the honeymoon, not at the courting phase. Your beginning phase of your relationship should be the easiest time. It should be the easiest time. If you start, put a heart if you understand what I'm saying. If you start off your courtship and your relationship with confusion, with I don't really know what's happening, I don't know how they feel about me, with like back and forth, with space, with games, with shooting like slugs and indirects, like with playing back and forth with third parties, if that is a part of your initial relationship, if you have a recovery plan and a self-improvement plan, if you put this man or woman that you are attached to or connected to in your mind on a performance improvement plan, and you got a list in your head about how you're going to help them be a better person, right? Red flag. Because they should be the ones who are in charge of themselves. You want to be with fully idealized, that's not the right word. I think it's fully individuated, but you want to be with people who are fully connected to taking care of themselves. That doesn't mean that they're perfect, but it means that they are self-aware enough and they are putting in the action and the work where they see a problem, they try to fix it. Otherwise, you will become the fixer. You will become the fixer. If they don't know how to fix their own problems, you're going to become the fixer, and that is not what you want. Okay? Thank you for the hearts. I'm happy that it is making sense. Self-actualized. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You always got me. Thank you. Appreciate you. Hey, you. Okay, let me look at these comments that I missed over here. Yes, it makes total sense. Makes so much sense. I'm new to your podcast and page. I love it so far. Oh, thank you, Miss Bubbles. Hey, superstar. Hey, Cash Money. I love your name. You're such a blessing. Thank you for your beautiful work. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. Exactly. You're telling the whole truth. Yep. You were just listening an hour ago. Well, welcome, love. Okay. Any questions about that before we move on to number 2? For those of you who are just joining me, we're talking about 3 ways that we gaslight ourselves in relationships. 3 ways that we gaslight ourselves in relationships. If there aren't any questions about the first one, go ahead and put a heart or a number 2 in the chat. And we can talk about the 3rd way that we tend to gaslight ourselves in relationships. Put a heart or a number 2 in the chat. I'm going to take a sip. Wow, make sure y'all are still with me. Thank you for the 2s on YouTube. Y'all got me, Instagram? Thank you. Thank you for the hearts and the 2s. Okay. The second way that we can gaslight ourselves into relationships is picking up more responsibility than we need to do in a relationship. We can gaslight ourselves into picking up more responsibility than we actually need to pick up into the relationship. So this is related to the last thing that I emphasized before coming to number 2 about you becoming the fixer. You will see, this is something I see all the time, is someone will be telling me about what is going on in their partnership, a problem that is going on, something that their partner is doing or not doing. And as they fully tell me like all the things that they've talked about and all the things that they've asked for and all the ways that they try to make space for their partner, their next response to me is, but you know, I also didn't communicate it perfectly on this day and at this time. But they also told me that I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, so I guess it's both of us. And I'm like, girl, A plus B does not equal 6. Like, you are trying to add up things that have no correlation. And you're taking either the bad behavior or the negligence or the lack of skill of your partner, and you're making yourself responsible for it. And you're thinking that if you overcompensate, and if you overcompensate by either working on yourself to where you become this Zen-like perfect spirit that isn't triggered and that never has any issues in the relationships, or if she does, that she's able to fully take care of herself and not need her partner, because that's something that I even talked about in this week's episode that it's going to be really important for you to make sure whatever partnership you're in, even a super healthy one, that you are still your best friend. That when it comes to looking for emotional support and validation, that your partner is not the only source for it, that you have to learn how to go within and be your own internal resource, right? So we'll take all this good advice that is true, we'll take all this good advice and we will use that as a reason to become needless and wantless in our relationships, and take the emotional labor and take the responsibility for problems in that partnership that is not your responsibility to solve. It's not only that phrase that people say that relationships are not 50-50, they're 100-100. So you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to do my 100. Girl, you're doing 150 and your partner is doing maybe 20 on a good day. And you'll take those little crumbs and say, well, they're trying. Well, no, they ain't trying, because they have you to overcompensate. They have you to pick up the slack. The thing that happens between love addicts and love avoidance, and I know that there are many love avoidants here, so this may sting a little bit, or you may be like, well, that's not true, but whatever. I'm going to say it, and then I can clean it up or clarify if I need to. But for those of us who have ever been the love addict in a relationship with a love avoidant, we can switch. What love avoidance gets from being attracted or being in relationships with love addicts is after that initial honeymoon where everybody is like all ooey gooey, the love addict can pull back subtly, slightly. If they're not a narcissist, it's not necessarily on purpose. Like, you're not like, got you hooked, see ya. People aren't like that heartless or cold, but it's just a defense mechanism. When things start to get a little bit too intense or emotionally involved and you start to feel your freedom encroached upon, love avoiders are great at creating space and distance. So they will create space and distance either by being very distant because of time, or they will start to be critical, and that person will start to get on their nerves, and so they won't be as available, whether or not they're physically present, just emotionally cut off, or just emotionally in their mind. They'll start to get on their nerves, and they'll start to pull back their energy. But the love addicts will overcompensate for that pulling back. So the love addict is going to plan the dates and going to be like, how are you doing? And checking in and all that stuff. And so this person is going to overcompensate for the lack of effort and the minimalness of energy on this part, right? And so until it just starts to implode on each other, right? Someone said that's me. Yeah. You're describing me. Yep. So it's important for us, going back to this week's podcast episode where I talked about, can a love addict and a love avoidant make it? It's episode 215 on the Black Girls Heal podcast. For those of you who are not listeners and you just found the name Black Girls Heal and you're like, what's this? Welcome. But I talk about, can a love addict and a love avoidant make it in a relationship? And yes, they can. But they both have to be in charge of their own process. Love addicts and love avoidants, both sides love a fixer-upper. It's just the way that they may look for their projects and the way that they may show up may be slightly different, but they're both trying to fix things through the other party versus fixing themselves. An intimacy disorder at its core, love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation are all three intimacy disorders. But it's more about, they're all intimacy disorders because they're different techniques to hide people from seeing the real you and getting too close. And also it keeps you from being connected to yourself, to those deep negative fears that you may have, feeling not enough, those fears of rejection and abandonment, and using whether or not it's relationships, overcompensating by being an overachiever, hiding and being isolating and being in your own little bubble. You'll use any of those things, a variation of those things. We can overcompensate in all these ways. So whether or not it's addictive processes was the last thing that I was saying, instead of doing our own internal work, right? And so let's not gaslight ourselves into thinking that another person not doing their part and showing up in the way that we need them to is our responsibility, right? Versus they are showing what they are available for. I say it all the time. Sometimes it's not that this is a bad person. A lot of us are connected to people who are really nice, loving, truly good-hearted people. Like they could be truly the people who would give you their shirt off their back, but they either cannot, they don't know how to, or they don't want to show up for you in the way that you want them to. And so we have to believe that. You know, I was just watching, I think there's a new therapy show. I don't know if it's that show that's called Blue Therapy, but you know how they're like, there's a set of therapy shows now where there's an actual therapist and there are couples who agree to come and like be seen. So is this clip I just saw, like literally before I got on. And so the guy was saying, you know, he said that he met this girl's father, and the father asked, "What are your intentions?" And he said, "I love your daughter, but I'm never going to marry her." So they're in therapy talking about that. And so she's sitting on the couch, you know, on her like aside on the camera, and she's like I can't believe he said that. Like anybody else would would make polite conversation. And so I don't know why I'm staying in this relationship and having someone be my baby daddy. And so that's why we're here. And she concluded it as making it seem like he doesn't have like a good filter, and as if he doesn't really have good boundaries around his words. She wasn't taking it as that person was telling her exactly what he was capable of and what he wanted to do, that he did not want to marry her, that she was not worth marrying for him. Not that she is not marryable, but that for him, it is something that he was never going to do. And so she's in therapy with him to try to convince him and push him into marrying her. And here's the thing, a lot of us will win. We will win, we will get exactly what we want. Some of y'all are in that place now, you've been in that place before, where you got the person to do exactly what you wanted them to do, but they didn't want to do it, and there were consequences for that. Whether or not it was you continuing to do more of the emotional labor, feeling like they really didn't care about you, feeling as if, you know, you were just a placeholder or option, feeling as if you were not special, you know, and these are things that I see and I hear all of the time. So you have to pay attention to people and see the reality of what's going on. Does that make sense? I used to think women were over exaggerating about their partners being their opponents. Yeah, you know, this is real. It is very real. And I don't think that we all started to open up to this being very real until the last couple of years. I think in this wave of education and like, you know, social trends, like the good part of it is that there's been more conversations with people about what happens in relationships and what's healthy and what's not healthy. And so one of the trends for those of y'all who are on social media a lot and like watch a lot of these viral clips, depending on what's on your FYP, you'll see so many clips of women who are in heterosexual relationships, who are sharing these clips of their partners doing something that is rude, dismissive, dishonoring, disrespectful, and just mean. And everyone in the comments will be like, "He doesn't love you, girl. He doesn't like you." And the women will come back and defend the relationship and say, "Well, that's just how we joke. That's just how we are. That's just how we operate." But I really think many of us grew up in settings and watched relationships where women were so emotionally neglected and abused and dishonored and treated as tools and dehumanized, but the other parent stayed, right? They were in this committed relationship. And so they literally don't even know what it looks like. Like to them, they may actually truly feel as if this isn't that big of a deal. And they're not able to see the abuse and the neglect that other people do because their eyes haven't been open to it. But what these things have done have started conversations to where women who maybe they're not the ones who are putting their stuff out there, but they're watching it and they're watching the comments. And over time, they're starting to realize, okay, wait, I guess that was kind of mean what he said. I guess he didn't have to slam her face in a cake like that. I guess what they call a prank, and you see his face and you see his tone after it, he's really getting off on humiliating this woman. He is really, truly telling her he doesn't care. He is like, there's a clip that I want to stitch on TikTok. And I try not to do stitches on like real life people because it's a real life situation, and y'all know, like I want to make sure that I'm treating people like with love and respect. But there's another clip that like went viral a few weeks ago about this girl. She was like on a ferry with her boyfriend, and she was like telling him, you know, I love you so much, and I know that you always say that you don't like when I bring my camera out, and to like just be in the moment, but I just want to record these moments because I really love you so much. And he turns to her while she's in the middle of that sentence and says, "Stop talking my ear off." Just like that, y'all. He says to her while she's pouring her heart out to him, "Stop talking my ear off." And so you see people in the comments, it's split in two. She cut the comments off. But you see the responses and it's split in two. There are people who are like, "Girl, run." And then there are people like, "This is only 15 seconds of the relationship, and you can't tell what a relationship is like in those 15 seconds." And you're absolutely right. You can't. You don't know everything for 15 seconds, but you can tell warning signs. For those who have been in these types of abusive relationships, we know, and it's not just projection. So here's a non-subjective set of facts for those of you who need that. John Gottman is one of the leading researchers for marriage. He has written so many books, and they are one of the leading experts on what makes marriages work. They can predict up to, 97% accuracy by observing a couple if they're going to make it or not. 96, 97 accuracy through the research that they've done over the last several decades. And one of the things that they talk about that makes a marriage work is not whether or not a couple argues or not. That's not it. It's not whether or not they, necessarily have a certain amount of activities together. I mean, that's part of it. But the main thing that they talk about are bids and repairs. So a bid is when one partner is sharing something that's important to them, is a bid for connection. So does that person turn towards them or turn away? So for example, if I say, "Oh, look at that pretty bird outside," or "That's a really pretty bird," if my partner just ignores me and keep doing what he's doing, if he acts like I don't even exist, or if he says that's so stupid, all those are examples of turning away from or turning against. And those are predictive signs that the relationship will dissipate. A bid, and an example of turning towards, is just acknowledgement. Just even saying, just acknowledging that she was heard. Or saying, "Oh yeah, that is a bird." And having a partner who just does that, they don't need to do a 3-hour conversation or have all these deep check-ins every week, but just having a partner that acknowledges you is what makes a marriage work. But the dismissals, the denying of attention and love. Gottman talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are also the 4 signs of relationship dissipating, and it's disgust, stonewalling. What are the other 2? I'm on my screen, so I can't look them up, but there's criticism, and what's the 4th one? Disgust, stonewalling, criticism, and I can't remember the 4th one. But in that 15-second example that I gave you, 3 of those were present. The criticism, "You talking my ear off too much." The look of disgust when she's expressing love towards him was there. The stonewalling and just being quiet, that was there. Now you look at the rest of their videos, because her account at the time that I checked it is still open, and they look like this loving, fun couple. But we all know, who have been in relationships before, that we are not going to post. I mean, some people are. Some people, that is their bread and butter, to post fights and discord. But we're not going to post all these like really bad things. And how many of us have, who are these people that did the research? John Gottman. The name of their institute is Gottman Institute. And they have so many books, and they're like they are people that every single couples therapist to get their degree study, because they are that renowned for their work. They may use different models and theories in couples therapy, but they are one of the foundations for different theories around couples. So, yeah. My point being, what I really love about some of the good things that have happened with all these discourses of relationships is so many people have woken up to things that have been generational trauma and generational traditions and curses that have been passed down that we didn't realize were problems until we started to see, okay, wait, does it always have to be like this? Can it actually be easier? Right? So, yeah. The live is about 3 ways that we gaslight ourselves in relationships. Let me go ahead and pin this to the top. Y'all had a lot of comments while I was just chatting, so let me look at them. Is there misogyny? You can't do anything about that. Okay. All right, y'all are having your own conversation on the side. I will come back and look at that later. YouTube be lit. Let's see over here. Very traumatic childhood with a narcissistic grandfather. Yep. Always says question. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Telling the truth because all those things you listed led to my divorce is the truth. So the thing that Gottman also says is that, what does he call the couples? He says the ones who are able to master the bids and the repairs. So also the idea is every time that there's an issue or a disconnect or a hurt within a relationship, it takes 5 repairs for every negative issue. So a repair is them touching your arm, them like looking you in the eyes and saying something sweet. But that's a ratio that's needed to offset all the negative interactions in the relationship. So relationships that don't have any set of repairs, or there's only one person that's always the one that's instigating the repairs, that's an issue. Does this work for friendships too? Does rich part work for friendships too? A lot of men say they love their woman for what she does and did for him and how she elevated them, not for who she is. Yep. Most people see this as true love, but isn't this selfish? Yeah. If you are talking to a person and they can't say anything about you, like those people who, something else has been viral is a lot of these people who will do these anniversary posts, and it's men who make anniversary posts for their wives or their girlfriends, and they'll, in their posts, at a time that they are there to exalt this person for what they've done for them and who they are, they will talk about, it hasn't always been perfect, and I've put you through so much, and something about you is you're a soldier, and just basically saying you've taken all this shit from me, and I just want to say thank you. Instead of like saying, you're the most amazing person I am, y'all remember there have at least been 2 people over the last 2 years who went viral because these men said with their full chest out loud in public, you are not the most beautiful, but I love you. And the women that they were with literally had no concept of what love and intimacy looks like in a healthy partnership, to where they saw those things and initially felt loved by it. They felt seen, because they don't think, like, the only way that you can actually take that in and not be offended by it is if you don't see yourself for the beauty and the treasure that you are. And also that you have never seen women around you be protected in that way, right? And then here comes the flurry of the internet being like, what is going on? And you as a woman, and I think many of us, especially if you're following this channel and following the things that I talk about, there is some area that someone was not showing up for us and loving us in the way that we needed to, and everybody else could see it but us. And there may have been defensiveness around it, defensiveness of them, defensiveness of ourselves. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, I love myself. And so it is really hard to be in that position. And I can't imagine what that's like to be in that position and then have the whole world, millions of people judging you and, or maybe judging this partner, but you feel like it's a reflection of you too. Like, that has to be so hard. And I also feel like these conversations are needed so that women stop taking crumbs and stop taking scraps and thinking that this is the best that it is. And thinking that self-love is being able to tolerate this emotional and abuse and neglect. And to think that to win in a relationship is the person who has the most time. That's why I contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Um, that's why, when I give examples about long lasting relationships, I always talk about the Obamas, and I think we slowly run through who our couple goals are, as people in the public eye, they share more about the relationship, or there's a scandal, or, they write a book and then we learn something about them. And we're like, oh crap, but we used to think that they were couple goals and they're not. So the Obamas are still, at the time that I'm recording this, they are still people that when we look at pictures of them and we look at them together, we're like, that's what I want, right? I want to find my Barack, I want to find my Michelle, or whatever. And so Michelle has famously said many times in both of her books about how, there were 10 years of her long-term relationship with her husband that she didn't like him, couldn't stand him. And whether or not, I can't remember if the years are concurrent or, split in between. But basically we see that. And so we think, okay, well then it's normal for us to go through these dry periods with our partners and our relationships. But you got to look at who you're attached to. Are you attached to someone who, again, is self-accountable, is doing their own work, or are they using you? Has there ever been a point in your relationship that has actually been equal and full of healthy love? Because yes, even in the healthiest of partnerships, as y'all grow and become totally different people, think about who you are now. You are a totally different person than you were 7 years ago, than you were 14 years ago. So imagine you being who you are now, and you marry somebody where they are then, and then 7 years later, you're a completely different person, they're a completely different person, add in kids, death, money issues, drama, career, of course stuff is going to happen. So that's why it's so important that you are attached to people who are in charge of themselves. Because if you always have to fix everything and everyone, and if you're with someone who doesn't see you and doesn't respect you, and that you aren't actually friends on some level, it's going to be that much harder. Okay? Woo, we got lots of comments and questions here, y'all. Okay, let me scroll back up. Let's see. I feel like I missed a question. If I missed a question, please put it down again, and if I have time, I will answer it. How do you bring sexual intimacy into a new relationship? Is it better to take it slow or go with the flow and see what feels right? Ooh, girl, that is not on topic for today. Today we were talking about 3 ways we gaslight ourselves in relationships. I may come back to that. Let me see what's going on YouTube. Someone said I'm getting a Happy Meal. Where does that come from? Yeah, no problem in a doctoral program. Oh, you're still talking to the other person. What if your love language is acts of service, so you put doing over words? Example, I like people for their willingness to bring ease in my life. Why else deal with romance when being single is easier? So there are multiple things there. And then I'm going to go back to my third point. And I'm going to answer this because I feel like this is related to getting connected to what you want and what you don't want. So what if your love language is acts of service versus actions, or doing things or saying things? Whoever you are attached to, y'all, you need to understand that you are not attaching to a person solely for them to take care of you, unless that is the arrangement that you want. I think most of the people who are listening to this, you want companionship. Companionship is mutual. So if your love language is acts of service, of course you want someone who is going to try their best, even if it's not their natural love language, to get to know you and get to know what you want and speak your love language. But you also have someone who has their own love language as well. And so if you truly want companionship versus I'm only here for the perks and the benefits, but I want a true partner, you're going to have to learn how to speak their language as well. With that said, being in a relationship does take some work. It takes work even in the best situations, because y'all are two different people. different value systems, even if they align a lot, you know, the way you communicate, the things that you're looking for. So to the point about it's easier to be single, yeah, stay single till you meet your person that's worth you dating. And that's something that I hear from a lot of people these days who have been like paying attention and like thinking critically about relationships and why do I want a relationship and like what's the benefit of it. Like anybody, I'm going to say this with my whole chest because I believe it. Even people who have never been in a relationship before, I truly believe, and you can get mad at me, I truly believe that if anybody wanted a relationship, they can go out and get one today. But who would you be able to get in a relationship with the person that you wanted today? That's the problem, right? If you thought the problem was that I'm lonely, you can go out and have someone in your bed tonight. You can go out and have dates lined up over the weekend if you wanted to. But would they actually be people that actually benefit you and bring honor and time to you? And I think a lot of people have gotten to this place where they're like, you know what? Me just going out and me just spending time with people is not where the money is. That's not where my pleasure is. My pleasure is going to be with people who actually add to my life and I add to them. So there are a lot of people who are electing to stay single until they find someone who changes their mind, which I think is great. However, because my community is filled with avoidance, I also need to say my avoidance, you have a responsibility to be open. This last week's podcast episode talks about that, episode 215. If you are so used to being in your head and in yourself and not ever being open, it doesn't matter how amazing a person is, you're going to find a way to sabotage that. You're going to find a way to push them away because you do not know how to let your nervous system rest. You do not know how to let people in. You do not know how to initiate what's going on for you. And if you do, you are like you got a notepad, you waiting for them to fuck up. Okay, I'll let you in. We're together. Give me a reason to cut this off. And you're waiting and you're looking for it. And so as an avoidant, if this relates to you, you got to learn how to heal that part. You got to learn how to heal that fight or flight mechanism that you got that's going to keep you cutting people off like this and being cut off queens. Right? Am I talking about some people in here? Maybe I'm only talking about myself. Being single at the age of 42 and never having a positive / serious relationship makes me feel worthless and unworthy. So, you're not asking for feedback, but I'm going to say something. I want, actually, as you share that, tell me what questions or thoughts you may have around that, because I don't want to jump. I want to take my own advice where I'm like, I don't assume that people know what they want. That part, men are the easiest to secure. Yeah, men are, so I'm someone who part of my trauma has been feeling as if I was overlooked and not ever seen. Growing up by people. And so I remember when I first started my healing process and I was like very thirsty for this male affirmation and attention. I would see people who would say, male attention is the easiest resource to get for those of us who are straight. And I would be like, whatever, but it's kind of true, right? Like, attention is not what you want. You want protection, you want love, you want comfort, you want safety, you want someone to prioritize you. Like, that's where the real treasure is. And having someone in your DMs or having someone to take you to dinner or again to be in your bed is very transactional and easy these days. But you want the real thing. I'm fearful, avoidant, but I'm starting therapy this week. Awesome. Okay, last one, and then I actually do have to go. I have to go do mom things. Okay, if y'all ready for number 3, we're talking about 3 ways we gaslight ourselves in relationships. Put a 3 or a heart in the chat. A 3 or a heart in the chat. It looks like on YouTube, it looks like my shadow is smearing, but it doesn't look like that on Instagram. Oh well. Love y'all. I love me too. I'm still cute. Okay. Number 3, the third way, thank you for the 3s and the hearts. Number 3, the third way that we can gaslight ourselves into relationships, and I guess I kind of like went into it, is not knowing. I wrote here, so cover your kids' ears. The third way you can gaslight yourself in relationships is not knowing that you are that bitch. Not knowing that you are the prize and you are that treasure. You are the treasure. So going back into that lack mentality, right? And thinking that if this doesn't work, it's going to be that much harder for the next person when really you're wasting your time. Once you know something doesn't fit, it is your responsibility to get something that does fit. If I got a dress in my closet and it doesn't fit me, and I keep trying to squeeze into it, but it's the only thing I'm trying to fit. And I'm like, you know what? If this doesn't work, then I'm not going to go outside. I'm going to keep myself inside, and I'm going to keep myself from the big, beautiful life that's available and abundant for me. Versus saying, you know what? I really love that dress, but it ain't fitting how I want it to fit, so I'm going to find something that does. Right? And then if something changes to where this dress fits the way that I want it to fit, bam, I love it. But right now, it ain't it. And that's okay. But a lot of us get really hyper focused on something that isn't showing up for us the way that we need it to. And it's because we don't see what we're worth. We don't see our value. We don't believe that the world is abundant for us. We don't believe that anyone will see the value in us because we don't see the value in ourselves. And so that is part of the work that we have to start with. You know, a lot of us get into love addictive relationships because the person is speaking life to a part of ourselves that we have disowned, or a part of us that we have rejected, or a part of us that we don't believe in. So if we think that we are not that smart and we meet someone who's always like, you know what, I just love hearing you talk and I just love your ideas, we are going to stay connected to that person because they're giving us something in that moment that we don't know how to give to ourselves. But what I see most often when it's that type of exchange that is coming from a place of deficit is that there is a cost to that. That we, because we're so thirsty for that type of affirmation and validation that we don't know how to give to ourselves, the red flags that are red flagging around them, we are more willing to forgive it, to make excuses for it, to practice patience with it, because they're speaking to this part of self-love that we feel the absence of, right? So the key is to really become your biggest cheerleader, and your biggest fan, so that when people give you these compliments and when they give you this attention or they give you the set of resources that you want, that you are not willing to abandon yourself. So I remember I had one boyfriend who had a whole lot of money. He had a whole lot of money. Many of y'all know that I grew up with a lot in a low-income household. So a lot of poverty, a lot of lack trauma. So I remember that for this guy, I wanted to stay connected to him because of his resources. And even so much to where after we broke up, he was actually my narcissist, the main narcissist relationship that I was in. When we would break up, and I had to realize that I would start to think about him when I was in financial distress, or when I felt like I was in financial distress, because I had associated in my brain financial relief with this person. So it wasn't actually him that I was attracted to or that I was attached to. It was what I felt like he could do for me. And part of us, we gotta really look at these gap areas and stop waiting and hoping that this magic love relationship is going to fix these wounds. We may find the most amazing person who actually does step in this gap area, but it's not going to stop us from needing to go to the wounds that started all this, right? If you have a body image issue and you have someone who says that you're the most beautiful person in the world, that may feel really good at first, but that's, if you don't actually get on it, it's not going to stop any insecurities around you thinking, I wonder if he thinks that girl is pretty or prettier because her shape is this way and mine is this way. I wonder if he likes this person because her hair texture is this way and not this way. Or he told me I was beautiful twice yesterday and he only told me in the morning when he left today, right? He didn't tell me as many times. Like, you will start to look for out of this place of fear and anxiety, look for this affirmation, and it's never going to be enough because it didn't start with them, it starts with you. Okay? Is that making sense? Yes, I'm going to post this live. Depending on if the first one, because those of y'all who've been on with me, you know that the first one, I got a phone call and so it froze. If the first one gets posted, then I will post this one next. And if not, I will pull both down and I will try to upload this YouTube one to here. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, this Bishop Good. I think you're saying this is so good. Makes perfect sense. Okay, awesome. Great, y'all. All right, well, thank you for joining me live. These are all the things that I love to talk about because it's how we need to get free. So I think with all this, you know, we know these things. We know we need to love ourselves. We know we need to look at the red flags. We know we need to raise our standards, but knowing how to do that is what gets hard and it gets in the way. So that is why, in addition to doing this podcast that has hundreds of episodes, in addition to doing these lives, in addition to doing all this other stuff, I still have my coaching program because this stuff, it takes real support and dedication and tools to help you break this cycle. The knowledge is not enough. We do these things subconsciously. We don't even realize it until maybe other people point it out. And even then, to the point of what I was sharing here, we can be defensive around it. We can be defensive around it for a whole lot of reasons. So if these are things, if these are the ways that you gaslight yourself, where you think that what's going on with this person is temporary, where you take on more responsibility in relationships, friendships, family, and romantic, if you take more responsibility with people than you need as a codependent, and if you just don't know who you are and what you're worth, the Recovery School is your next step. So you can go to therecoveryschool.com, learn about the program. I've posted a link to our most recent open house where I give a full overview. You can watch it for free. It has a full overview of what we do in the program. I talk about love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation. I teach for the first 30 minutes, like a workshop style, before I even get into the program so that you can get some information and support around it and what gets in the way. And then you have an opportunity to join and enroll if it is what you feel like you need. So you can join by going to therecoveryschool.com. Either sign up for the open house or get started immediately. We have our group call tomorrow. Tomorrow is our first group call for the month. So I would love to see y'all there. And that's it for now. I love you all. Y'all have a good night. Take care. Bye. Bye, YouTube.